This is Chris with Dive Zone Scuba for another technical diving tips, techniques, and trips video.
Alright, so in this video what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about D-rings and bolt snaps and some tips and tricks to make using them a little bit better. Alright, so I'm going to begin with an overview just describing different types of D-rings and triglides and bolt snaps. And then what I'm going to do is talk about some of the things that divers might find helpful with D-rings and bolt snaps. Alright, so here's the first D-ring we'll talk about. This is like just a regular conventional D-ring. And it's a flat D-ring that you can take a look at. And this has many uses. It's pretty much a standard D-ring. We primarily use these for positions on the hip where you want it to be able to fold flat. In some applications, like the ones on the shoulder strap, you don't want the D-rings necessarily to fold flat. But what you want is you want to have a slight bend in them, and so it's easier to clip things on, like decompression tanks and long hoses and so on. Alright, so same thing, except it's got a little bend in there to make it a little bit easier to position it in. And generally speaking, the way we'll do it is we'll stick it so that the webbing is going to be in the bottom and the bend is on the outside. I have heard of some people doing it the other way. I'm not sure why, but this is the way that we normally do it. So if you have a more exotic application, this is an example of a bent D-ring, although I believe these are also made straight. But what makes this particular D-ring different is that it has the removable section here in the event that your application does require you to be able to stick a D-ring on there, or in the event that you do not want to have to move things around. So this D-ring is a little bit more flexible. And then, of course, D-rings can be made out of different materials. This is a bent D-ring. This particular D-ring is made by Mares. Exact same thing as this one here. This bent stainless steel D-ring, but it's aluminum. Alright, so some people don't like the fact that when you have one of these D-rings that it flops back and forth. And I'll just take this one for example and stick it on a piece of webbing. And the idea is the two-piece part here, this can flop back and forth, and if you had this on your harness, it would look like this. It would be sticking up like that. Some people don't like the fact that it can flop back and forth and get out of position. And we'll talk more about this issue here later. Alright, so then you have some fixed D-rings, and these are welded to the triglide. And these are very useful for on your hip, to put accessories on your hip, to put decompression bottles on your hip. Because the D-ring is sticking out in a fixed position, a predictable position, it's very easy to control. If that one's too bulky for you, they have shorter, low profile ones, and so sometimes I'll use these on a plate and wing system. Primarily on like a recreational one where I might need to have fewer things. And then you can also have one of the ones like this, okay, which is a fixed D-ring, and in this case it's also a bent D-ring, and so you can have that stuck on there, and that stays pretty much in position, so you can clip off your long hose, clip off the nose clip on your decompression tank. Alright, so some other applications. There's a company called Piranha Manufacturing which makes very exotic hardware. So in this case we have a integral triglide and a D-ring here, and then it also has this thing here. So what this is another fitting for a chest strap in case you use one of those. So these are obviously much more expensive than a regular D-ring, but if you want to have everything stuck in one, then you could certainly do that. You can do the same thing like this, and you can use a chest strap. And so what you would do in that case is you would take something like this, and you would actually put this underneath this D-ring, and that would be a fixing point for a chest strap. Or you could also use this one here. This is a very exotic one here, and I'm running out of real estate on my little piece of thing here. But you can actually do both a D-ring and a chest strap fix thing here, just by get in there, just by doing that. Okay, so now we have the D-ring, and then we also have a fitting for a 2-inch wide chest strap. All right, so let's go back and talk about some of these other things here. Okay, so this is a regular triglide, and this is actually a regular triglide. The difference between these two is this one is actually a flat triglide, whereas this one is slightly stepped up. So what this allows you to do is, if you are trying to weave through two pieces of very thick 2-inch webbing, this gives you a little bit extra clearance in order to do that, which this one does not, since it's flat. They're also serrated triglides. If you have like a single piece of webbing, or the webbing is thinner, then these serrations do help prevent it from moving around. And of course, you have an the aluminum triglide as well. This again is a morates. Okay, so we've already talked about this, and we've already talked about the T thing, this thing. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the bolt snaps. Okay, so the most common bolt snap, this type of bolt snap, is just a single bolt snap with a bail on the bottom, and there are different types of bails that you can have. You can actually have bails that have a removable piece in there, kind of like this thing here, and that enables you to stick other things on there. But what I really want to talk about here, everybody's seen those, are these. This is called a double ender, and it has the ability to stick something on and hold it. Sometimes not so reliably, but that's one of the things we're going to talk about in this video, is how to increase the reliability of this. And then just to show different types, this is an X-Deep one, although I think that you can also get similar designs. And so instead of having a very small gate actuator here, this has a very large fitting right there. And then it also has a flat part here that fits your finger better than the one here. And again, this is a double ender both sides here. Okay, so that's our initial discussion of the different types and designs of D-rings and bolt snaps. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to talk about some of the things that I have discovered in the course of diving that you might find helpful in terms of like tips and tricks on how to do some things. All right, so what we're going to talk about now is a tip, trick, whatever you like to call it, regarding a two-piece D-ring and triglide. And what we're concerned about in this situation is that we have a D-ring which gets out of position. And so this is the typical D-ring on a chest strap that we would have here. And sometimes, I'm not sure why, they flop out of position. Sometimes they're sticking up straight like that, where you want it like this. Okay, so what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to replicate the same thing as this, okay, where this does not get out of place, but we're going to be doing it with a movable D-ring. Okay, so all you need to do that is to turn it into a fixed D-ring is a couple of wire ties. So if you go down in and put the wire tie through the triglide, and then you take and put it through the D-ring, and then you cinch it up. Then what you do now, do it for both sides. What you have now is you have a situation where your D-ring is now not going to flop around. Okay, and of course, what I could do is I could cut these two things off in order to make this neat. Just cut this off here and there. And so what I have now is I have more or less a fixed D-ring which sticks out. I don't know why you would want a fixed D-ring that was not bent, but this is a fixed D-ring that is bent. Okay, so now it won't flop over, and you can more easily attach. For example, your long hose bolt snap onto it. Okay, so this approximates this. If you don't have one of these and you're having a situation, you can modify that. Okay, so that's one tip and trick regarding D-rings. All right, let's talk about another tip or trick. And what we're gonna talk about here is a fixed D-ring, and we're gonna be talking about another application for this D-ring device besides being a chest strap. Okay, so one of the things that you may do is on your lift hip, for example, you're going to have potentially your pressure gauge and also a bunch of deco bottles, and also possibly a tank leash. Okay, so there can be a lot of things that can be stuck on your left hip. And so when you're doing a regular type situation, you can have a lot up to 4 things on this particular D-ring, and it becomes kind of cumbersome getting them in the right position and so on. So one of the things you can do is you could take one of these types of D-ring things, and you can use that in conjunction with a fixed D-ring like this, and then you could put this down through here and then go down through here again. Okay, and so what this does is you're putting one on top of the other, and so now what you can do is you could use this D-ring device. You can use this for your pressure gauge, and you can use this with just your tank leash or your decompression bottles. Okay, so what that does is it keeps the types of things separate, and you're much more in control. You know where your pressure gauge is going to be, and you know where your tanks are going to be. So you can double up different types of D-rings and achieve the same purpose. Piranha again makes another type of D-ring that's a little bit smaller and neater than this, and that's I frequently use those as well. But either one of these will work for what we're talking about. So the next thing we're going to talk about has to do with the double ender, and as I mentioned earlier, sometimes the double ender gate will release when you don't want it to, and you could potentially lose what you have. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put a little bit of tackling on here, and I'm going to take some 1/8 inch cord, and I'm going to wrap it around. I'm going to wrap it around my bolt snap, my double ender here. And I'm going to keep this really as tight as I can get it. You want to have a lot of friction on this, and you want to make it fairly large. So if you do a couple of wraps, you can do that for identification purposes. But what we want to do here is we want to make a lot of wraps. So I'm going to put a couple more on. Maybe not quite that many. Okay, I think possibly that's a good number right there. Maybe one less. All right, so then I'm going to stick this end of the line through here, and again I want to keep everything really tight, so I'm going to pull this line and make this as tight as I can get it, because what you want to do is you want to have a little bit of friction in here when we do this. Okay, so I'm going to cut off the excess here, burn. We're going to burn the last little nub here. You can stick it down on there. Alright, so this tackling thing is usually used to mark your gear, so that if you give your double ender, for example, to somebody, then what will happen is you'll be able to get it back. But it also has another function, which I typically use it for, and that's to prevent the gate from opening. So if you jam up the tackling up to the top, it doesn't allow the gate to open all the way. So what this does is it helps prevent the loss of something. Okay, so you can articulate this side. This side is impeded from opening all the way. And then what you can do is you can move it on the other end too, and then this end is free, and this end is impeded from opening all the way up. What you can't do is make this thing so long that neither gate can open. And of course, if you have it in the middle, then you can articulate both gates. Okay, so you have to determine how long you need to make this. Okay, so that's another tip or trick or whatever you want to call it, involving in this case involving a double ender bolt snap. Okay, here's another tip or trick. This time we're going to be talking about a single bolt snap, and this particular one is one that you would typically use for a decompression cylinder or a pony bottle, and it has the large bail on it, and so this is going to be attached to the cylinder using a rigging kit or using some kind of line, or whatever you want to have it with the line. Okay, and then we have our fixed D-ring here, and so we're using this again on our hip to make sure that the ring does not flop around, and we know where it is because it's in a rigid position. So even though we have reduced the difficulty of putting the bolt snap onto this because we have a fixed bail, sometimes it is still difficult to do this, and so what I'm going to talk about now is another tip or trick to make it easier to put this around here. I didn't know that was possible. In fact, I've never seen anybody else use this technique, and I use it all the time. Makes things much easier. Okay, so this is really kind of a shockingly easy trick. Okay, so when you have your bolt snap, okay, if you're trying to go and you're trying to stick this on here, you're trying to go all over the place trying to find this thing, you don't know where it is. But one of the things you do know, okay, is where your finger is. Okay, so what I do frequently is I stick my finger inside the gate like this, and so then what I can do is I can feel for the D-ring with my finger, and then I can just snap it in like that. Okay, so again, rather than trying to flop around trying to figure out where this whole thing is I can feel for the D-ring with my finger and then snap it in like that. Okay, so another tip and trick involving D-rings and bolt snaps.
This is Chris with Dive Zone Scuba. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe.